dachte wirklich, geht um GOTH SPIT und dachte, da wurde ich und da wurde ich gebaitet und jetzt wird mir erzählt, wie schlecht das GOTH SPIT heiß zu finden. Ja, gut. Fühlt man sich auch ein bisschen ertappt. Okay.
Are you serious right now?
Also, okay. Wir schauen jetzt ein Video über GOTH GIRL SPIT anscheinend.
Are you serious right now?
That's crazy.
I love Goth Girl Spit!
Goth Girl Spit.
Das ist wild.
I don't want to hear a word about gatekeeping harmless fun. Every time somebody's out here defending harmless fun, somebody ends up at the hospital with half a butt cheek missing, the dog's knocked up, and the parents are screaming, "How could this have happened? Outrage, outrage." There's a big buzz in the goth community right now. A lot of people are discussing a group of content creators that have reduced goth into a ditzy-ass, kink-obsessed, nymphomaniac caricature, and surprisingly, people outside the goth subculture have so much to say about that.
Gut, here we are, Alter.
You don't say. A company took one look at a viral goth dating show, one that spawned many just like it, featuring the same
Mal die Ghost Dating Show? Ja, das ist ja wild.
creators, where someone cosplaying Mavis from Hotel Transylvania spat into a contestant's mouth, and then suddenly they said, "Hey, we can market that."
Haben wir da einen Clip von?
And they did. And it sold out. Think about how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that. That
Ey, dass die Leute dumm sind, das war vorher schon klar.
one single viral moment became so commercially valuable that that's what became associated with goth.
Ich wollte schon immer mal bei so einem Videodreh zuschauen, aber ich esse gerne Knoblauch. Hä?
And not the decades of history behind it. Spit. You know they have medication for the way you act. The only people out here saying that it's harmless are people that aren't affected by it or benefiting off it or some combination.
Okay. Da müssen wir jetzt ein bisschen kritischer rangehen. Okay.
Of the two. You're jealous. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen that comment either directed at me or other people who have spoken out about this. Because imagine hearing somebody say, people are developing harmful stereotypes about a group that I'm part of, and it's
Okay, da kommt der Schuh her.
affecting us in our personal lives to the point of being
Wenn man es erklären muss, ist es nicht mehr witzig. Vampire und Knoblauch. Ich wusste schon, worum es geht, aber es war vorher schon nicht witzig. Aber dass du dir jetzt erklärst, macht es ein bisschen witziger, finde ich sogar.
scary. And your response is, you're just jealous. As though concern about how a community is perceived can only be explained as competition. Because women, we can't discuss stereotypes without it being about attractiveness. Which turns a conversation about public perception and safety into a fictional competition that nobody was having. People just love throwing around the word gatekeeper when talking about this. I cannot
War auch mein erster Gedanke. Ich dachte, hier wird die Geld gibt. Aber ist wie beim Libertarian Unk Video, da wirst du schon vorher aufgetaut, bevor du irgendwas sagen kannst. Es klang für mich ein bisschen nach Gatekeeping. Ich finde gut, dass ich jetzt erklärt bekomme, warum nicht Gatekeeping ist. W, Alter. Da hat jemand schnell mitgedacht.
tell you how many times I got called a gatekeeper and anybody else that speaks out about this gets called a
Ich weiß jetzt nicht, was das explizite Problem ist. Aber ich hoffe, das kommt noch. Momentan ist noch Verteidigung.
gatekeeper. And I wish I could say that I'm surprised, but there's always been a form of boundary setting, and it's not just goth that does it. You have hip hop, metal, emo, hardcore punk, they all do it. And it's not a way to exclude anybody, because you really have to be doing some shit for them to bust out the whole rule book. They don't do it for no reason. It's a way to preserve meaning and to keep shared spaces safe. Because without that, anything becomes everything. And I'm about to explain something that I know when you hear it, you have seen this go down. You ready? In a discussion about goth, people will start taking bets on when somebody's going to cry gatekeeper. In the age of social media, the word gatekeeper is used as kind of a shutdown. The moment that word is used, the whole conversation flips.
Oh, kommt jetzt hier Take, dass Gatekeeping gut ist, weil es die Community schützt?
The person raising the concern suddenly becomes the problem. And then the one that's misrepresenting or even being an asshole they become the victim. That shift is what discourages people from speaking up at all. Any attempt to just clarify a stereotype gets discouraged as hostility or exclusion. Eventually, people stop correcting it because all they're trying to do is just edit a misconception and not trying to get dogpiled. They stop correcting the misinformation because the social cost of doing it becomes too fucking high. And over time, when a culture loses that ability to push back on how it's represented, it doesn't stay intact anymore. It becomes whatever version.
Ich kann vielleicht nur nachvollziehen, weil ich keiner Subkultur angehöre, die
Performs best in the algorithm. And that version rarely reflects the community. Fast forward, and then your entire subculture is now a category on adult websites.
Ah, okay. Ja, das ist ein bisschen cringe.
See how that happens? Nobody is saying that you can't be goth, and nobody is trying to tell you that you can't dress the way that you want to, the way that represents you. Nobody's out here saying that you can't participate because we want you to. That's how subcultures stay alive. We want you to participate. What we're talking about, like the main issue, it's representation and it's consequences. When somebody says, we're being reduced to a stereotype that is affecting us in real life, and the response is gatekeeping, it's a dismissal. And it's usually because you feel
Also primär generell um Sexualisierung. Deswegen ist Goth Spit scheiße und okay, verstehe.
And then there's the prude thing. Because apparently speaking out against a stereotype that we don't agree with somehow makes us a prude, which is news to me. Just because we don't want your weird uncle with the glass leg and wooden eye, and no, I didn't get those two confused, projecting sexual fantasies doesn't mean that we're afraid of sex or dislike it. Goths tend to be very open and sex positive, even the asexual ones. We just don't need to turn our entire personality into a live demonstration. Hey, we enjoy a good Tennessee logjammer as much as the next person, and just
mal gucken, wann Tennessee Logjammer. Ah, okay. Warte mal, wie kann ich Tennessee Logjammer ja, ich kann es gut erklären. Habt ihr schon mal probiert, 2 Energy-Dosen gleichzeitig in den Automaten zu schmeißen? Ja. Tennessee Logjammer. Dann bekommt ihr Tennessee Logjammer. Oh. Weil Goth-Girls sehr sexualisiert werden oder was jetzt hier der Kontext? Ja, ich glaube, das ist der Kontext.
Because we don't feel the need to perform it in front of a live studio audience doesn't mean we're prude. So our feelings when it comes to this kind of thing, it's never about attacking sex work or sexuality or kink. It's not about people expressing themselves. The issue is when an entire group gets involuntarily assigned a sexual identity that we never consented to. You have a lot of people out there that are defending the rights and choices of the content creators that created the stereotype and continue to push it into the mainstream. But what about us? You know, what about our rights? What about our choices? Did we choose to be represented in that
Goth Spit ist was? Legit ein Energy? Ich glaube, das ist ein Energy Drink, ja.
way? You know, did I make the choice to be presented in a way to where my high school principal from fucking 30 years ago thinks that I simply cannot start my day without spitting in the morning latte of an investment banker because he's a bad little boy? Or that the mailman thinks that I cannot walk into a hot topic without jamming a traffic cone up my ass? Where's my choice in that? No? Nothing? Hey, don't blame creators for how other people interpret content. Or people can make whatever content they want. Yes, they can. But that's not the point. Nobody is arguing whether or not people have the right to post content. The point is what happens when that content becomes the dominant reference point for that group. When millions of people are shown the same hypersexualized version of goth, that's going to be what goth becomes associated with. Some weird undiagnosed spinal condition where it looks like we're all just out here fucking squaring up and beefing helicopters.
Yeah.
That's not normal. It is fucking wild how people will defend complete strangers, shaping a stereotype about an entire community. But the moment that
Blonder Lukas, danke.
community speaks up about it, we're accused of gatekeeping or being jealous or toxic. So it's fine
Guck mal, ich bedanke mich noch für Follows. Ich bin noch nicht so abgehoben wie die anderen.
for somebody to speak for us, but not fine for us to speak as ourselves for ourselves. This one's special. They're helping goth. Goth is back now. You should be grateful that they've made goth popular.
Haben wir da, also heftig, ich bin erschrocken. Ja, voll. Ja, aber ein bisschen Macker so. Ich bin auf jeden Fall ein Macker.
Where the fuck did it go? The music never stopped. Clubs are still here. Festivals still happening. Community thriving. Who the fuck said we were trying to make it popular? Whenever this whole argument is raised, oh, this is evolution, goth has just changed, ever is brought up, they're not viewing the goth subculture. It never reflects the subculture. What they're looking at is the visibility of a stereotype, and they just can't tell the difference. People think that
Ich weiß gar nicht, warum ich das Video so lange jetzt gucke.
TikTok,
Also ich bin... Aber
trimming
ja,
audio,
hier sind wir
randos and
jetzt.
black lipstick brought goth back. Yep. That's what it needed. And if you want to understand how
Ich dachte es wirklich geht um GOTH SPIT und dachte, da wurde ich und da wurde ich gebaitet und jetzt wird mir erzählt, wie schlecht das GOTH SPIT heißt zu finden. Ja, gut.
fast this kind of
Fühlt man sich auch ein bisschen ertappt.
thing becomes real life perception,
Machst
let's
du
kind
nix.
of look at the succession of events. But before we do that, anti-establishment slogans.
The system. Yeah. Fuck the system.
The system!
Yeah.
What happened to fuck the system? Back to the succession of events. So, a girl spits into a contestant's mouth on a stage dating show, aka Gruner's versus Spencer's Buy One Get One Free. It spread.
Was? Wie ist die Sendung?
Happened to fuck the system. Back to the succession of events. So, a girl spits into a contestant's mouth on a stage dating show, aka Gruner's versus Spencer's Buy One Get One Free. It spreads everywhere. And then a company releases a drink. Weeks later, titled GOTH GIRL SPIT.
I love Goth Girl Spit.
Do you think that's coincidence? That is a stereotype being capitalized in real time. That is not a machine you're raging against. That's the fucking air fryer. Get your head out of it. It doesn't belong there. So many people flew right past the issue and went straight into, oh my God, it's just aesthetic. Like, y'all just mad about clothes. It's not that deep, brah. It's not that deep as a dog whistle for you did the Tide Pod challenge too many times. It's
Okay.
not about aesthetic. It's about consequences. Once a stereotype becomes mainstream, that stereotype becomes an expectation for the entire group that's associated with it. The thing about expectations is that they change the way others treat you. When millions of people are shown, repeatedly shown, the same images of goth women, hypersexual, kink obsessed, mentally unstable, daddy issues, ditzy, only existing to fulfill your fantasy. You really think that shit's gonna stay online and not get carried into real life? School, workplaces, your local coffee shop while you're waiting for your drink to be made? Regular, everyday life. They're out there projecting it onto complete strangers. And that's the danger, because it's not because it hurts feelings. It's because it changes behavior. It changes the way that we're perceived and the way that we're treated. When someone sees a goth woman
Checke.
and automatically assumes that she's sexually available or has an OnlyFans, that's a consequence. When a complete stranger feels entitled to talk about their sexual kinks with you, that's a consequence. And the frustrating part is that people creating and amplifying the stereotype don't have to live with it. And the part of this that nobody really seems to consider is that not everybody who's alternative or goth is an adult. Not everybody that's affected by this is of age. A lot of these people are teenagers. These are kids who are just out there trying to figure out who they are, and they never consented to be part of somebody's sexual fantasy just because they found music that they like. I became a goth when I was 15 years old, and I found alternative when I was 14. I was into punk and grunge and all that stuff, and I looked it. And even back then, parents knew that it was associated with music, even if they didn't approve of it. If I was the parent of a teenager today, and I knew nothing about goth, and suddenly my teenager is showing an interest in goth and even presenting that way, I would want to do research. I would want to Google so I can
Ja, und das ist irgendwelche Hutas, Girls, die in Getränke reinrotzen. Ja,
know a little bit
verstehe
more,
schon.
learn more about my child's interest.
We're gone!
We're gone.
Yay!
What do we got, ladies?
We got leashes, we got collars.
I've got a flogger
Whip!
and a gag.
I would pull the plug on that shit so fast, because that is what's being pushed into the mainstream, not the reality. I hear from a lot of teenagers who follow my channel, and some of them are as young as 14 years old. And it's sad to hear some of the stories, because some of it's a lot of the same thing repeated, that they go to school with boys who watch this content. And the thing about this content is that it's not behind an age restriction, and it's pushed into the feeds of people who aren't even looking for it. So they watch this content, and then they go to
Die Frage ist, trinken die White Monster, weil die den Content schauen oder schauen die den Content, weil die White Monster trinken? Da hätte ich jetzt ja nur noch mal eine Aufarbeitung zu.
School the next day and they bring these assumptions with them in real life. So that stereotype, it stays attached to anyone who's alternative, including kids. And a lot of people will defend and say that it's not the creator's fault, that parents should really be monitoring their kids' online activities or they shouldn't be on these
Ich würde sagen Ersteres. Ich weiß nicht mehr, was Ersteres war. Ich habe die Reihenfolge vergessen. Aber ja.
platforms in the first place. You either ignore or have absolutely no idea how content is actually distributed. Because this is happening in controlled spaces. It's happening on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. It's on platforms where content is actually pushed into feeds. It all comes through as recommended content, and even though it's not labeled as adult content, a lot of it is sexually explicit, but it's formatted like anything else. Skits, trends, short form entertainment. It's the same format that kids consume constantly. Brain rot content. So when people are saying just don't let kids see it, what they're not taking into consideration is the reality that it's not actually something that kids are actively searching for anyway. It's something that's literally it's being served to them. And once it's in the ecosystem, that shit just becomes normal. It becomes how they understand what goth is. We got to talk about the kink community for a minute, because when it comes to these particular content creators, goth is not the only one being dragged into it. It's the kink community as well. And I need to be clear, goth and kink are not the same thing. Goth and kink can overlap visually online, and I can definitely see the distinction there. And also our histories have also become intertwined, as we've often shared.
Ich weiß nicht, warum ich gerade hier was über Goth lerne, aber hey.
Spaces, but they're not the same thing. And they don't mean the same thing. The kink community is built on consent, communication, boundaries, and negotiation. But that's not what gets shown in the skits. And all of it is all spectacle and performance, completely devoid of context. And when people consume this without understanding it, they think that this is universal and casual. And that misunderstanding affects real people that participate in those communities. Because kink is not inherently dangerous when you're engaging in it safely. It's when the misinformation gets thrown into it that it becomes a problem. This misinformation labeled as content leads people into these protected spaces. And it makes it very dangerous for those who are there engaging responsibly. If a tourist wanders into one of those protected spaces after consuming this content, expecting to get some form of what they saw, they can potentially hurt somebody. It's a very real danger. At the end of the day, it's not about telling people what they can or can't do, or what they want to wear, or how they want to express themselves, or what sort of content that they want to make. That's not the argument. Don't blame the content creators. They're not responsible for how people behave. And yes, no content creator is responsible for how some stranger goes out there and behaves in public. People should know how to behave as if their family tree is not a fucking wreath. We can hope. But it is not accurate to pretend that those reactions would exist in the same way, on the same scale, directed at goths, if the stereotype hadn't been created and repeatedly pushed in the first place. Because people don't invent these assumptions in their own heads. They come from somewhere. People learn from what they're shown. And once that version of a group becomes the dominant one online, that's what people are going to start recognizing out there in real life. It's not about assigning blame for individual behavior. It's about acknowledging where that expectation came from in the first place. The real issue is about who's carrying the consequences. The goth community. It's about what happens when the stereotype becomes much bigger than the very people that it's supposed to represent. Everybody's all about choices and consent, but we did not choose this story. This was chosen for us. We spent decades being called freaks, weird.
Was geht's? Um die Sexualisierung von Goth Girls. Und dass es nicht so fresh ist, weil die Leute ja nicht Consent dazu gegeben hat, also die Goth-Community sexualisiert zu werden. Und das ist auch kritisch, weil Goth ja nicht eine Subkultur ist, die nur Volljährige betrifft, dass da auch Jüngere mit reingehen, die noch nicht in Alter sind, in dem man sich überhaupt sexualisieren lassen darf. Oder wie auch immer das jetzt hier rechtlich auch, also weißt du.
Weirdos, losers, degenerates, devil worshippers, and honestly, given today's lane switch, kind of preferred it that way. Being seen as strange is one thing, but being leered at as a sexual fantasy is another thing entirely. Because at least when you're weird, people tend to leave you alone. But when you're suddenly being viewed as a viral fetish, kind of the opposite.
Das ist ein Thema, wo ich mir nicht bewusst war. Ich auch nicht, deswegen habe ich es, glaube ich, auch zu Ende geguckt. Oh, was haben wir denn hier? Eine Benachrichtigung. Oh. Geil, mein Kommentar wurde zugelassen. Cool. Cool.